Fantasy sports fans, welcome to MFSN The Hub's Fantasy Baseball Strategy Show. Now, normally we're here every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, but we had to make a change today, an audible. There's a rain delay, let's say. And so here we are at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Next week, we'll be back to the usual time. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and I'm here only today with Ross the Boss.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I want to talk waiver wire strategy and pickups with you, cowboy. I'm excited, Dan. It's officially the first week of Major League Baseball. It feels it's been going on for like a month now. It's only been a week. It's been a week. People are already like dropping people, and people are making horrendous moves. I'm just waiting. I love looking at the waiver wire every night because it's like Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's start with that. I mean, who have you seen cut in, let's say, in some of our leagues that you're like, wow, that's really fast to cut bait with?
Well, I mean, the first that was cut was the guy from Grayson Rodriguez for the Baltimore Orioles.
Right.
They sent him down to Rochester, and everybody thought he was going to spend the whole time there in the minors. I knew he wasn't, and he actually pitched a couple days ago and pitched great. And now I think he's in the starting rotation. But I mean, people, they see when players get dropped and they think they're not going to be in the roster until September, which is not true. They do it because certain people get hurt or injured and everything else. I mean, another huge pickup, which they announced he's cancer-free and he's going to be the closer in Chicago. And they're going. Chicago's a good
I did
team.
not hear that he's officially cancer-free. That's
I read on his Twitter that he's cancer-free. And you and I both picked the White Sox last year to win the World Series, and we were wrong.
Right.
But this year, they're playing really good baseball, and Liam is coming back. Liam Hendricks we're talking about. And he's somebody that you should definitely go after on your waiver wire. If he's not, hopefully, in your league, some people had him, they didn't pick him up.
If you're in a free agent league, you need to go immediately now.
Yeah, immediately.
Because he's an elite closer.
Yeah, he's an elite closer. Right now, they're having this guy named Lopez close, and he's an okay job. He'll be the closer for at least a couple more weeks, and then I think Hendricks will take over. So, again, those are the type of players we're going to talk about and strategy wise, and why you should have to act quick if you want to get these guys, because as soon as they're taken up, they're not being dropped. So it's very important that you kind of listen to us.
Well, and early in the season, it's really especially important to be thinking about these things correctly, because I know you're seeing this too. It's hilarious to me. People will make a pickup and they're like, oh, I love this guy. And then he'll go 0-4 one day. And they'll be like, well, now I got to cut him. I'm like,
Bassett, the pitcher for Toronto, had a horrible outing. Horrible.
Sure. And I mean, look at what's happening.
Everybody dropped him on the next.
Corbin Burns has been terrible in his first two starts. I have Zach Gallen. He hasn't been good in his first two starts. A lot of people start off slow. Now, there are some times, though, where there's cause for concern. I'm going to ask you a question about every time I go out on a limb with a pick like this, I end up getting proven wrong. I said Vinny Pasquantino was going to win the batting crown. He looks terrible. So what's happening there?
Hold on. The whole Kansas City team looks. The whole Kansas City.
It's true. It's true. They have.
I mean, they're not scoring runs. If you want to make money, just bet the under on Kansas City games. You'll be rich. Just do it now.
You're absolutely right. Although finally Bobby Witt Jr. broke through today with 2 for 5 with a homer. But they have not been hitting well. Should I be concerned about Pasquantino? Should people? No,
it's Dan. We talked about this. People panic.
Yep.
And people are concerned about certain players. And no, he's a good player. I don't think he'll win the batting title, but he's a good player. And it's officially the first. I think it's Thursday, right? So it's the first week of baseball. We just got through it. So no, I mean, teams have played an average of either 5 or 6 games already. It's very early in the season.
So Ross, let's talk about. We're going to go position by position eventually, especially over the weeks. But right here, I want to just talk about top pickups. Who are the absolute top pickups that you would make? And we'll talk hitters and pitchers. So
yeah,
let's say and we're doing 60% and under in their rostership on Yahoo. If they're more than that, we don't want to.
I mean, I'm taking players that are like 10% owned. I mean, it's like some of these guys I just feel showed so much promise and is playing the thing is they're playing every day.
Right.
And that's the most important thing. You want to make sure your player you pick up is not platooning, is not playing just because it's a left-handed pitcher or right-handed pitcher. You want a guy that's playing every day.
Let me just make one counter to that. I do agree with you, but at the same time, there are going to be times where you're going to need to be ahead of the curve, where you're going to need to pick up a guy who's currently platooning, but has a very solid pathway to that full playing time, especially if they have elite talent. And I would say, Ross, I think you'll probably agree with this, but I would say it's especially true if they're a 5-tool player. If they can steal bases and hit for power and hit for average, even if they're a part-time player, I want them on my team because injuries are going to happen. I'll give you an example, actually. One of my top pickups, and maybe I'm wrong about this, I don't know, but I've been all over Bryce Terang.
And tell us why he's not young on Yahoo. He's the shortstop, but I know he's playing second base.
He's going to qualify at second base in one more game, so you got eligibility at 2 different positions.
And he's a rookie, and he can run. He's fast,
very fast. He's had really good hit tools overall. So I think it's pretty reasonable to project him to be 15 homers, 30 steals in all likelihood, and you can get him for extremely cheap. He would be. I don't know if he's in my top 10 pickups. So once we look at the list, I might be like, oh, where there's actually players above him. But he's the kind of player that I would look at, even though he's in a platoon. It's okay. Now, I will also say this. If you're going to be in a platoon, you have to be the guy who plays against right-handed pitchers. If you're in the platoon and you only go against lefties, you're not going to get to that full playing time in all likelihood. So I gave you one of mine. Ross, let's jump in with one of yours.
One of my hitters, I mean, the shift is helping this guy. You can't shift this year. This is helping this hitter tremendously. And if he can hit 260, it's a miracle. And I think he can do it. Is Joey Gallo of Minnesota. And he's been on so many teams, Dan. I mean, the past few years, this guy's just he's like a bag. He's like a nomad. He goes everywhere. So Joey Gallo, 2 home runs. He was hitting over 300. But, I mean, he's just hitting the ball so hard. I mean, even his outs, he's not striking out as much. And, the thing with Joey Gallo is this. He's going to hit the home runs. He's going to get the RBIs. When that kills you is his batting average. And I feel that his batting average this year is probably his best year in his career with batting average. I have a feeling.
Well,
so I just feel if he could pick up a player and he'll play, again, he'll play every day in Minnesota. I feel that it's a great pickup just because of the home runs, RBIs, and even runs scored. I mean, this guy, will help your team tremendously, and the shift is helping him a lot.
I think it's a great idea, and I think not only this is just something. Listen, I'm a therapist, so I'm going to talk about the psychology sometimes. I think the shift is helping him just from a baseball standpoint, but it's got to help him psychologically too. I mean. He just knows that it's easier to get a hit now. It'll relax you. I mean, if you're playing into a shift that's always going to take away your hits, it's going to rattle your confidence. And so it'll be really, he could have a much higher batting average. Listen, is he going to hit like 300? That is never going to happen. We know that. But could he hit 260 even? It could.
Could he have 50 home runs? Yeah. If he
sure.
plays every day, he could have 50 home runs.
You're actually convincing me. I need to pick him up. I mean, I already have Terang, but I got to find room for Gallo.
I mean, I just feel, everybody's like trying to get these players that they hit 25 home runs. Gallo can hit 50. I mean, he's that good. And
for sure.
He's that proven. It's just, again, his demise is his batting average. But I think this year's going to be his year. Somebody else that I love, he's catcher, he's utility, but he's been killing the ball in Texas. It's not Don Garver, mill prostitute. That's an old callback from Saturday Night Live. I don't know if you remember that. Dan Aykroyd, one of my favorite sketches. It's Mitch Garver for the Texas Rangers. He's hitting over 400. He has 6 RBIs already this season. He plays either DH or plays catcher. In Texas, I told you this before, when it gets hot in Texas, the ball goes flying out of there. So Mitch Garver is healthy. Last year, he wasn't that healthy. This year, he's back. And I just feel the catcher position, as we talk about, is always kind of shallow. And if you could pick him up and start him at catcher every day, it's not a bad idea.
I think that's a great recommendation. And people are often looking for certain positions. People are often scrounging at catcher. So the nice thing about it is you can try him out for a week. It's not going to kill you. The way I think about the back end of my roster, Ross, is that I'm giving people tryouts and I'm trying to get people to solidify a spot on the team, just like any other team. Like right now, I have a terrible third base situation. A lot of people have a bad third.
I have a third baseman for you. Okay, keep going. Yeah, it's great.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But what I'm doing right now, I have 4 third basemen. They qualify at other positions. They're getting tryouts. I'm looking at Yoan Moncada. He's 49% owned. He's been really
and he's
hot.
hurt. He got hurt. Yes, a couple days ago he got hurt, but he's day to day.
He's day to day, right?
He was hitting before he got here. He was hitting over 400 and had 2 home runs. That's a good pickup.
You've talked about Brian Anderson before, but he's a third baseman. And
I think he's leading the league in hitting. I want to say, and he qualifies at third base and outfield. Is that correct?
He does. Now I want to say something. I'm not just chasing stats. He had a huge game the other night, and so his stats look ridiculous. I think he was batting like 500 the other day.
I think you're right.
That's not going to keep up. Be realistic about your pickups, but he's playing in a great lineup. He has played his whole career in a pitcher's park. He qualifies at outfield. I have a third base hole. Why not have this guy rostered on my team?
No, it's a good pickup. I had him as a streaker this week, and your attitude's perfect. You want to try him out. You'll give him a few games, see what he does. And the worst thing that can happen is you drop him next week, which who knows if he will. We'll see what happens.
Right. Now, here's another guy that I have is Elihuris Montero of Colorado. He was 3
I love him.
today.
I picked him up in some of my leagues. I love that guy.
And you want to look, he's got 7 games in Colorado coming up. Let's see how he does during that time. Any one of these guys could win my starting third base job because it's wide open.
I love what you did. I
appreciate it. And now I'll add just one more just to complete the picture is Spencer Steer, only 5%.
My team. I love it.
Yeah. And so look, I mean, if I could, worst case scenario, if I can play the starting third baseman in Cincinnati at home and the starting Colorado Rocky at home, that platoon works. And I need it because I don't have a good third baseman.
No, those are good examples. Those are great pickups right now for the beginning of the season. All these guys are people that are starting out early out of the sort of starting block, and it shows. I mean, it shows. I mean, these guys are all fast starters, and there's other guys that can't hit at all. That like Juan Soto is not hitting that great. I mean, there's guys that are not really coming out of the gate that great, but. It will all even out by All-Star break. Don't worry, Dan.
You mentioned you had a third baseman. Was it different than anyone I mentioned?
I like Makata, who's hurt, and I also like for the Reds Jason Vossler at third base too. He's been destroying the ball.
I was wondering about that. My main hesitation with him is he's a 29-year-old journeyman.
He's a journeyman. He came up with the Giants. You're 100% right.
But look at what Brandon Drury did in Cincinnati last year. If you get regular at bats in Great American Ballpark, you can do some big things. It's not necessarily going to happen, but I think early in the season, what we need to do is assess our weaknesses and use the back end of our roster to multiply our chances of doing better in those areas. Does that make sense?
100%. I mean, it's the right way to go. I mean, third base, we started the season saying third base and second base are very shallow. And all of a sudden, all these third basemen that we had no hope on are hitting over 300 or 400. I mean, and they're all killing the ball.
It happens every year. There's guys that emerge. So let them do it on your bench. If you're not sure about it, fine. But find a bench spot for those kind of guys. Russ, let's talk pitchers. Who would be a pitcher that you would definitely want to add at this point that's pretty readily available?
But let's separate it a little bit. Let's talk about relief pitchers real quick. I have a quick question for you. What bullpen has the lowest ERA so far in Major League Baseball?
Okay, you were doing a little bit of a Max Headroom on my side, but for those of you who don't know that reference, it sounded like you said, who's got the best bullpen in baseball so far?
Who has the best bullpen? Who has the best ERA right now in Major League Baseball? And you'll never guess it. And it's under 2. I mean, it's under 2. Who is it?
I wish this is one where I just wish we had more time because I love these kind of games. I'll take a stab at it, and I'm probably going to get the wrong answer, but I'll take a stab at it. You said it's I'm unlikely to guess it, so I'm going to guess the Tigers.
Pittsburgh Pirates. 1.86.
I had the right idea.
Bullpen ERA. I mean, it's just you really have no faith in a bullpen like Pittsburgh, and all of a sudden they just find these pitchers to come out of there, and and one of their pitchers has 3 saves. I mean, the Pirates started out pretty hot. They're not like everybody predicted them in last place. They're playing pretty good ball. But some of let's start relief pitchers. I like Will Smith at Texas. I think he's the closer there, maybe with Leclerc, maybe. But Will Smith he has what save? He has a 0.00 ERA. I like Andrew Chafin of the Diamondbacks. He has a save this year, and Kyle Finnegan of the Nationals is pitching really well too. It's just with these closers, it's a lot of managers are not going to just pick on one person anymore. They're going to pick on one or two people to close games.
Yeah. By the way, Finnegan got bombed the other night, so his stats probably don't look so good.
Okay, Finnegan got bombed.
But I think he still has that role, because there isn't a lot of talent there.
I mean, let's say like Estevez of the Angels. Okay, they said he's the closer. Well, the Angels had a closing job last night, and basically he pitched over the weekend, so the manager couldn't use him, and so he couldn't put him in to save the game because he used him when the Angels had the lead. A big lead. They didn't need the guy.
Yeah. So let me ask. Well, I wanted to ask this: how many roster spots do you like to use on the closer spot in general?
So what I do, my theory is it just depends what league, but I usually use like all the pitcher spots as as either guys who get holds or guys who get saves, because they're going to come in the game when it's a close game so they can get a winner save, and they pitch one inning. It doesn't really hurt you that much when it comes, if your total innings pitched basically. So I like to use all the pitcher spots if I can put in guys that are good. I don't want to put in guys that are going to hurt me at the end. But if there's strikeout guys, like Chapman, let's say, who's a strikeout, who comes in and strikes out 3 guys and pitches 1 inning and gives up no runs.
Well, he's a great pickup. He's a great pickup, by the way.
Because, he's pitching. He's back to old form. He looks great for Kansas City.
And what are the chances that he's going to get traded, and he's probably going to close when he gets traded? A lot of these guys, when they get traded, they don't end up closing. But if he continues to look good for the next month, he's going to be a closer by the end of the year.
But that's my strategy with those pitcher spots that are open for starters and relievers. I kind of like.
Oh, I load up on relievers. I do.
I load them up, but I told you our strategy from the beginning of the year is like I'm not going to draft these guys early. I'm going to wait.
Yeah,
because all these closers, the closer for the Dodgers, I thought was a closer. I mean, he doesn't even come in to close games. He's like the holding guy now.
Isn't that the worst when you draft a guy and you're like, he's gonna be my closer, and then you see him come in the 6th inning? You're like, ooh,
well,
that's a problem.
Well, the manager of the Dodgers did say that he's gonna use different pitchers at different times. Sure. He warned us. But again, it's wide open. The relief pitching position is a lot different now than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, and we see positions changing that in fantasy sports. I mean, it reminds me of what's happening to the running backs now. In football, you can't rely on. We won't get deep into that because we're doing baseball. But with closers, it's very rare to find a guy who is. I mean, when I was ranking closers, when we did our rankings, there were probably like. My 11th closer was like he could end up not closing games from the start of the season. There was just no clarity.
Yeah. I mean, it's wide open. I wish I could tell you there's 20 closers that for sure will keep their job. There's not. There's probably 5 or 6. All
right, I'm going to ask you another kind of question. I know that you're not a big fan of rookie hitters, because they usually just take a lot more time to get.
Again, there's exceptions.
There are always exceptions. I mean, you drafted Jordan Walker, so we know that you sometimes think there are exceptions.
Jordan Walker had a home run yesterday, and he's hitting over 300, so he's doing okay.
He's been great. So we have to revisit my Mike Trout for Jordan Walker trade. We'll talk in a keeper league, which I'm sure.
Keeper league, you keep 6. Yep, keep going.
Exactly. So. But rookie pitchers, I feel like, can come in and have a big impact right away. Grayson Rodriguez was a good example. Who's the next Grayson Rodriguez who we're looking to get into the rotation who could have a big impact in your mind?
I mean, I know I'm a Reds fan. I know you're going to say, Ross, you're just saying this because you like Cincinnati, but
I know you're more objective than that. Go ahead.
But Lovello for the Reds, he's a phenom. I mean, he's that good. He throws the ball hard. Great stuff. Great movement. Doesn't throw the ball straight when like Hunter Green. I love Hunter Green, but he throws the ball straight and they just pound him sometimes at 100 miles an hour. And I get it. You know, that's what happens when you throw the ball straight in Major League Baseball. They can tag you. But again, there's not many. I mean, Mackenzie Gore. I know he's not a rookie, but he, to me, somebody that is about to break, and he had a great start last week. And I think he's somebody that you got to keep an eye on in Washington. I just feel he had so much potential in San Diego, and they traded him. But a Mackenzie Gore, somebody that is ready to pitch to Major League Major League hitters. It's a very tough as a rookie to do that great.
All right, I'm going to give two pitchers that I think people should consider picking up, and just keep in mind,
I'll give two also.
I'm not expecting these ones to deliver necessarily, but they're the kind of player that I want on my team because if they start pitching well, I'm going to want that player. Mike Clevenger is one of them.
I have him on my list, and he's a great first start. 0 ERA and 8 Ks. Unbelievable.
And if he returns to form, this guy can be a dominant force.
And he has great hair.
So you might as well, this is a guy to have on your team over the next 10 days. Let's see how he does. If you're not comfortable starting him, fine. But he's actually pitching against the Pirates next. So he's also a really good streamer coming up. Another guy that I'm interested in, probably less than Clevenger, I'm interested in Seth Lugo because he's always had good stuff. He's finally getting a chance to start, and he's in San Diego. So those are two guys that I would mention. And I don't believe in chasing stats alone. You know, there are times where you just chase stats. I'm not saying let's plug Seth Lugo into our lineups yet, but it's about the tryout. You know, it's just what I'm doing at third base. It's what we're doing at closer. I think you need to do it at the back end of your rotation. Try out these guys. There's going to be guys who emerge. Here's a good example. You can't get this guy in any leagues, but Jeffrey Springs last year, he was one of these guys. Look at him now. I mean, especially Tampa Bay. The things they do with their pitchers, it's insane. All right, who are two of yours?
Justin Steele for the Cubs. I watched his first game. He looked great. Didn't give up any runs. Had 8 strikeouts, 5 or 6 innings. I mean, he looks really good. Live arm, really good arm. The Cubs were so high on him when he came out of the minors. I think this could be. I think he's going to have a good year this year. And another guy that, you know, every year he does. Last year he had a great year. He was an all-star, I think. Is Martin Perez of Texas. This guy, ERA was under 3 last year, most of the season. And then this year he pitched on Sunday Night Baseball. I watched him against the Phillies. He gave up, I think, 2 runs, and his ERA was 1.59, and he struck out 7. But Martin Perez is somebody gets no respect. I mean, it's like the Rodney Dangerfield of pitchers. I mean, the guy gets nothing.
I remember you talking about him last year, and
I did, and
no respect. It's true,
and wasn't drafted in a lot of leagues, and he's a veteran pitcher. He's been around. He knows how to pitch to a lot of the American League. He knows his stuff. And Mackenzie Gore, I talked about, he looked great in his first start. He's pitching in Colorado his next start, so I'm not too high on him his next start, just so you know. I'm not going to count that start. So if you have him, just bench him against Colorado. I don't like starting.
And listen, if Mackenzie Gore gets control of his control, that's the main thing. He
looked good.
He did look good. He did walk 4, so there's little concern about that. But you know, I had him. I ended up cutting him for Clevenger actually because I decided to go for. He's just not. Mackenzie Gore is not going to get a lot of wins on the Nationals in all likelihood, and he's going to have limited innings pitched probably. But I think he's a great pickup, a fill-in for a big portion of your pitching, especially like in rotisserie. You know, in rotisserie it's different. In head-to-head, you got to pay attention week to week about is this guy worth owning now. But in rotisserie, you got to take the long view. I'm going to give you though. There's a couple more hitters I just want to mention.
Hitters, okay. One more pitcher. Mitch Keller of the Pirates. Mitch Keller of the Pirates. He's somebody that's
Casey talked about him.
He'll probably be traded by All-Star break to a contender. 15 Ks in 11 innings so far this season. That's not too bad. That passes your litmus test. And he looks really good. I mean, I watched him pitch against Boston, and he looked terrific. And this guy, he's going to be traded probably. I'm sure a contender is going to want this guy as a starter. But again, he's not going to hurt your team, and he's somebody that you should consider picking up.
All right, here's a couple guys that I don't know why they're so low in rostership. Some of that relates to probably different leagues and different settings and things like that. But Garrett Mitchell is still only 49% rostered. He hasn't even stolen a base yet, and the guy has blazing speed. He's in a great lineup. He's going to be playing. He's going to be getting lots of playing time. But
a home run yesterday, I think. Yeah,
he did. I also
I think the question about him and Dan is his offensive production. If he can hit major league pitching, I think that's what people are looking at right now.
In terms of his average, that's what they're worried about.
His average, yeah.
I see.
But he's a terrific center fielder. He can field. I mean, he'll probably win the Golden Glove in the National League.
But you know what? It's interesting because a lot of fantasy sports players, they don't recognize that the defense does matter. If you're playing terrible defense, you're going to end up having many less ways onto the field. And if you're playing great defense, I mean, take a look at a guy like Miles Straw. He's on the field because in real life baseball, he's extremely valuable.
And plus the new rules. I mean, he has 5 stolen bases, or he has 5 stolen bases already.
Oh yeah.
So let's say if he averages 5 stolen bases a week and plays the whole season, I mean, he's going to have about 180 stolen bases.
Yeah. He'll break the record.
I mean, he'll break Ricky Henderson's record with over 100.
I mean, it's interesting. That could happen, actually.
I guess. I mean, they're breaking.
I don't think it will, but
I mean, with the pitcher not being able to throw the ball back after 2, and with the bases being bigger and everything else, I mean, a lot of stolen bases are happening. There's going to be a lot of guys that are stole over 40 bases this year. I mean, Stephen Hawking, I think, can steal 30 bases, and he can just roll. He can just roll to the base. You know what I mean? So it's like, I mean, if you throw myself out there, I can steal 20 bases. I mean, it's not as hard as it used to be. It's a lot different now.
All right, now if we're moving into Stephen Hawking running jokes, we're really crossing some lines here.
That's what Ross the Boss does.
That's what he does. Okay.
And God bless his soul.
It made me a little uncomfortable, but
he's not with us anymore. So but if he's looking down on us, we're making a reference that it's really easy to steal bases.
That's true. Now, Joey Weimer is another guy that I think is probably, and listen, it depends on how deep your league is. You have to remember this. I'm not recommending picking up Joey Weimer in an 8-team league. I get it. And if your benches are really short, no. But if you're looking for some gold at the back end, he's only 9% rostered. He's a young rookie with a lot of talent. And, is the playing time going to stay? I think, yeah, because I think injuries are going to happen. I think, you've also got Sal Frelick in the Milwaukee. I mean, I'm all over Milwaukee these days, but they just have a ton of talent coming up. And they have a great, they hit in a good ballpark, and they have a great lineup overall. But you have to balance your roster. So you don't want to have 6 guys like Joey Weimer and have nobody that you can play and rely on, but pick a couple of guys, give them a tryout. That's how you find the gold. Ross, we're going to wrap up here soon, but is there anyone else that you would mention that we not talked about?
I like Yardy Diaz of the Tampa Bay.
You're Yandy Diaz.
He can play first base and third base. He has 6 RBIs. He's hitting 333. There's always players in Tampa Bay you don't hear about because no one cares about Tampa Bay except the fans that live in Tampa Bay. And that's a few because their attendance is so low. But Diaz is somebody that's going to play every day, and he has the potential of hitting 30 home runs. And this guy is a real good hitter, really good. Somebody else that I like is a catcher. He plays for the Angels. I actually watch Angel games here in Los Angeles. Is Logan O'Hoppe? I think I said that right. O'Hoppe?
Is it? I thought it was just O'Hop, but
is it O'Hop?
I haven't heard it pronounced yet.
O'Hop. He's hitting 278, and he's leading the American League in RBIs with 8, and he's a catcher. Again, I don't think he'll lead the American League in RBIs, but he's averaging more than 1 RBI a game. And it's I know it's not that long of a season, but I like him a lot. And James Outman I like for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
He's hitting 333 and already has 5 RBIs, and he's been killing the ball.
And obviously, he's in a great lineup. I will mention also Francisco Alvarez just got called up. I'm sure you heard that.
Who did?
Francisco Alvarez, the star catcher for the Mets. And he's probably going to find his way in the lineup as a designated hitter. Now he's coming up because there's an injury there. So the question is he going to stay for now? But we play in a 2-catcher league. Francisco Alvarez is a no-brainer addition.
No, I love it. That's why I made a 2-catcher in our league.
I think it was a very wise move. Well done,
You're
Commish.
enjoying it.
I am.
You're enjoying
100%.
the 2 catchers. I know you are. But hitting wise, again, don't do anything drastic.
You got to have patience.
You got to have patience. But again, if you do drop somebody, look at the lower tier guys that are not owned by that many people. Don't try not to drop. Don't drop
because
your stars.
If you drop somebody who's not as heavily rostered, you could get them back if they, But if you drop a star, listen, I think everybody's gonna make mistakes. I've cut some guys already that I'm like, should I have cut them? I don't know. Here's a good example: JD Martinez. He could have a really great year. He's got a great history of great years, but he's been bad for 2 years. He only qualifies at utility, and he didn't fit on my team. I didn't feel like trying to shop him around. I thought, there's plenty of value.
No, he was drafted so late in leagues that his value is very low. He was hitting over 300.
Yeah.
But
last
year he had like 15 home runs last year, I think, in Boston, which is horrible.
Yeah. It looks like he's declining. Here's another guy, Jared Kelenic, I cut ties with because it just looks like he does this every year. He's great in spring training. And then when he has to face major league hitters pitchers when they're sharp, he can't get it done. So I decided, is there risk to that? Yeah, there is. But a guy that I do like is Spencer Torkelson. I think that he only qualifies at first base now. If he was a third baseman, I would have been all over it. But I didn't have room for him because I have Pasquantino and Vargas. But I think Torkelson, he's one of these guys I'd want on my team for the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, he went to a great college, one of the best in the country.
And he was a legendary hitter there. I mean, these weeks are for tryouts, really.
I love the tryouts. I love it. I love how they're trying out for Dan Ratner. It's my favorite.
That's right.
This is unbelievable. But Spencer's a good pickup. It's just with him, he just has to be more consistent. He's just not consistent.
And it depends on what your need is. If you don't have a need at first base, don't worry about it. But if you do, he's a good guy to be trying out at the back end.
I mean, first base is so heavy. It really is. There's so many great first basemen and people that qualify at first base. It's
yeah. And meanwhile, Ross, I got to give you some props. You talked up CJ Cron, and one commenter actually lit into you for it, but he's been destroying the ball. So you're looking good so far.
No, and the thing about Colorado is they have not played at home yet, and that's where these guys feast. That's where they bet their stats high.
Yeah. No, I'm excited about Montero to see what he can do at home, especially given I have that third base need.
The whole month of April in Denver is horrible. It's cold. The ball does not fly that as much as it does in May and June.
Patience
July. Again, it's a patient game in Colorado until it heats up. But when it does, we all know this. It's like 12-10 in scores in Colorado, and people having multiple hits and all this other stuff. And you just got to be patient because the weather. 2-3 games today were postponed because of weather. The weather really makes a big factor in how the games go, and you got to know that. And just be patient. That's all I can say.
Totally agree, Ross. And so I'll just reiterate one thing before we wrap up for today. You want to think about your roster and how to prioritize who are you gonna have on your team. You want the guys who could break out. Listen, you're gonna miss some, but pick which ones you most don't want to miss out on, that you really have a hunch about, and prioritize them. You're going to have to balance your roster, but we're going to keep giving you guys pickups throughout the year. We've got 2 shows. Ross does one with Casey on Tuesdays. That's 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Then Casey, Ross, and I do a show, and that's going to be more heavy on the waiver wire for baseball. That's Thursdays, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. And we're going to keep it coming, but I will say this. At the beginning of the year, it's most important that you're making these pickups. At the end of the year, we know what's going to happen. People are going to start tuning into fantasy football. They're going to lose. You're going to be able to get value on the wire in August. Is there going to be as much value? No, but
No.
The key time to be paying attention is like over these couple 3 weeks. That we really got to be on it. So we'll keep it coming your way, guys. It has been a pleasure. Ross, thank you for joining me tonight. And I look forward to more shows with you throughout the year. It's very exciting that baseball is here. Congrats to UConn for winning the tournament. I think we all saw that coming once we saw the Final Four. But
and LSU and the women's. I watched
and LSU for the women.
And I usually don't want to watch the women's basketball tournament that much, but I watched it. I loved Iowa. I loved LSU. I thought it was a great.
It's
tournament.
Starting to catch on, which is really nice to see.
It was both tournaments were tremendous. I mean, congratulations to the NCAA. It was great. And as we said, beginning of the tournament, it's going to be a lot of long shots that were in it, and we were right. I mean, Florida Atlantic, Miami, we didn't have any of these teams.
More than ever. All right, guys, we'll be back to baseball, of course, and we're looking forward to continuing the season. We'll be back. Ross will be back with Casey on Tuesday. I'll be back with Ross and Casey next Thursday, and we look forward to seeing you. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you for watching.